Hey y'all, I'm Jerdy, and in this video we're going to go over the Reborn Council encounter in the Scarlet Enclave raid in Season of Discovery. The Reborn Council is the 6th encounter of the Scarlet Enclave, which involves us fighting once again the heroes of the Scarlet Monastery, resurrected from the dead by that evil dastardly Caldoran. These bosses do not have a shared health pool, and each have their own unique mechanics, which we'll go over right now. Herod returns with his iconic ability, Blades of Light, a whirlwind that will essentially kill anybody but your tanks in 1 to 2 hits. He can cast this anytime once his rage hits 100. He has Radiant Divide, a frontal that can be soaked, but also is survivable if only your tank gets hit by it. And then he has Divine Avatar, a 15-second, 50% damage buff, and during this 15 seconds, Divine Bolts will rain down in the arena, telegraphed by a glowing circle on the ground. Herod can also cast Blades of Light and Radiant Divide during Divine Avatar, which makes these already scary abilities even scarier. Next, Doan is the caster of the group, and his main ability is casting fireballs on targets throughout the raid. He also has 2 dispellable debuffs, Imbued Assault and Slow. The former is a fire dot inflicting 1000 damage per second, and the latter is not only a movement debuff, but also a casting debuff. Like I mentioned already, these need to be dispelled ASAP. He will also cast Molten Basin, filling the entire center of the arena with lava, while a fire tornado circles the outer part of the arena. And then finally, he has Blast Wave, knocking players back and slowing them down. This is very dangerous when Molten Basin is up and Herod is nearby. The third and final boss is Vishas. I actually don't know how to say this one correctly. I say Vishas, and is the rogue of the group, and he has the most dangerous ability in the raid, Peeled Secrets, a 2-second cast that has to be interrupted. It is almost a guaranteed wipe if even one goes off. This will inflict 1000 shadow damage per second to everybody in the raid and increases for 15 seconds. Again, if one goes off, GG and try again. Vishas will also shadow step throughout the raid and cast Garrote on somebody, which requires them to be healed to 90% or above in order to remove the debuff. All 3 bosses have Reborn Inspiration, which buffs them and the other boss if they are within 10 yards from each other. Herod's Reborn Inspiration reduces damage taken by 50%, Doan's heals, and Vishas increases attack speed by 50%. Each boss will also cast a permanent mechanic to the encounter when they are killed. Herod's is Divine Avatar, where the hammers will fall on the ground. Doan's is Molten Basin, with the lava and the fire tornado, and Vishas is the most deadly Veil of Darkness, where players will suffer shadow damage every 1 second, and only moving removes a debuff but causes you to take additional damage. This is why we always want to kill Vishas last. What made this fight challenging at the start was the very strict enrage timer at 5 minutes, then 6 minutes, but now it's at 10 minutes, so essentially this fight is just surviving the mechanics and not a DPS check. Always prio, just living through the mechanics versus trying to get a cast out. So let's go over the strategy and how we do this encounter. You only need 2 tanks for this fight, one on Vishas and one on Herod. You can have a tank on Doan, but he teleports so sporadically, and you can avoid his melee by not being in melee range of him, that it's not required. There are 2 strategies that I've seen that are popular right now, and the first one is burning Doan down and then splitting damage between Herod and Vishas, and the second is burning Herod down and then splitting damage between Doan and Vishas. My group opts with the latter, as we like having Herod down since he has the most health. On pull, we split the melee bosses, Vishas and Herod, on the left and right side of the upstairs circle. We give them plenty of room, that way if Doan teleports to one of us, we have plenty of room to move without being too close to the other boss. Remember, you don't want these bosses within 10 yards of each other or they'll get buffed in some way, shape, or form. When Herod gets close to 100 range, all your melee should swap to Vishas, and then once he casts his Blades of Light, it should swap back to Herod. I shouldn't say all of your melee, however, as you'll always want 3 to 4 of them permanently on Vishas to have a kick rotation set up to always kick every Peeled Secrets cast. As I mentioned before, you don't want a single cast to go off, as there's a 90% chance it'll wipe your raid. Your casters should be split amongst Doan and Herod primarily, but your multi-dot casters should be dotting everything. Anybody who can dispel needs to dispel every dispellable buff in this encounter, as it can either kill a player or severely slow down your DPS. If Doan ever teleports near you, you will stop everything you're doing and move away from him before continuing any cast. You are griefing yourself and the raid by trying to finish a cast near Doan, because chances are you're gonna get blast waved into the lava or blast waved into blades of light. I've seen it happen too many times. Just move out of the way and then continue DPSing. You do more damage when you're alive. When the fire tornado is coming towards you, run through it, as you'll only take 1 tick versus 2 if you're standing still. Similar to Doan's blast wave, you are kind of griefing your team if you choose to take 2 ticks of this versus just taking 1. DPS players really need to make sure that every possible debuff is on every boss. Exposed armor, fairy fire, curse of wreck, shadow weaving, occult poison. That's the biggest one of them all in my opinion. Having 2 rogues for this fight is very beneficial for your raid, as you can make sure every boss has occult poison for your casters. If you only have 1, that rogue needs to make sure that Herod and Doan have occult poison up as much as possible when all 3 are alive. DPS players need to make sure they are not too close to the tank that has Herod, and that Herod is not facing them, because Herod's Radiant Divide has a very large radius, much larger than you think it is. So if Herod is facing you and he is remotely close to you, move away from him. Mages should be keeping an eye out on Vishas in case the melee assigned to him miss a kick. You can save the entire raid by casting your counterspell during that time. For tanks, the Herod tank, I find it's easier to just solo soak the Radiant Divide versus trying to get your melee to soak it with you. When no Divine Avatar is active, it's very easy to soak this. With Divine Avatar active, I would suggest making sure you have a cooldown ready, although you can survive it without a cooldown if you have a good amount of shields up. The reason why I prefer solo soaking this is that, especially when Divine Avatar is up, melee DPS can have unfortunate RNG that a Divine Strike is going to land on top of them during the soak, which can kill them. The tank tanking Vishas needs to make sure they're not too close to their backs against the wall, near any objects in the room like the candles or divots, as it can bug out Vishas and he can evade and miss a kick, or it can just bug out the entire encounter. Tanks should also make sure their camera is faced opposite, that way they can see the entire arena and not just the boss in their face. The Herod tank will also have to move out of fire swirlies on the ground, as this does damage and will do more damage if they have the imbued assault debuff on them, which they shouldn't, because it should get immediately dispelled. Just barely move out of it. You don't need to reposition the whole boss, or that can grief your DPS. Healers should make sure that they have split assigned healers on the 2 tanks on Vishas and Herod, as these guys do some pretty strong damage on just their melees. Healers should not be afraid to scold their DPS who can cleanse or dispel, because it is not their job to do that, as they're trying to focus on healing the raid. Red Paladins, I'm looking at you. Get to cursive. It's not that hard. And I think that's it for me, you guys. This fight is not that challenging after the enrage timer nerf, but it is a fight that will severely punish you if you fail to do the mechanics correctly. Always opt in just doing the mechanic versus trying to get 1 more cast out, as the latter can genuinely wipe the raid or just leave you with a floor POV for the entire encounter. As always, thanks for stopping by and saying hi. Follow me on twitch.tv/dirtyjd. Leave a comment and a like if you enjoyed this video. I appreciate y'all joining me on this project. I've never done a full raid boss guide before, just tank guides. So this is a fun little passion project for me, and I appreciate y'all joining the ride. Once this is done, I'll be getting back to opinion pieces or paladin tank videos. So with that being said, I'll see y'all in the next video.